January 19th, 2026. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Millions pause to honor a man who dreamed of a nation where people are judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. But what if Dr. King could walk the streets of America today? What would he say about a country that just returned Donald Trump to the White House for a second term? About AI deciding who gets hired, deported, or about billionaires richer than ever, while wages stagnate and racial wealth gaps remain wider than in 1968. Today, we ask the question almost no one dares to ask out loud in 2026. Would Dr. King still believe the dream is alive, or would he say, "We have betrayed it"? Stay with me, because the first answer might shock you. The economic dream versus 2026 reality. Dr. King was not only a civil rights leader, he was a fierce critic of economic injustice. In 1967, he said, "There are 40 million poor people here. I intend to do something about it." He called for a radical redistribution of wealth and power. He even planned the Poor People's Campaign, a multiracial march on Washington to demand jobs, income, and housing. He was assassinated before it could fully happen. Now look at 2026. The racial wealth gap is worse than it was in 1968. Black families hold about 15 cents for every dollar of white family wealth. Latinx families fare only slightly better. Meanwhile, the top 1% captured more wealth in the last 5 years than the entire bottom 50%. AI is replacing jobs faster than any technology in history, and low-wage workers of color are hit hardest. So here is the first uncomfortable question. Would Dr. King celebrate record stock market highs, or would he call them a modern form of exploitation? But economic justice was only part of it. Dr. King also spoke out against militarism, and what he said in 1967 might sound terrifyingly familiar in 2026. Militarism, War and Foreign Policy in 2026. On April 4th, 1967, exactly 1 year before his assassination, King delivered his most controversial speech beyond Vietnam. He called the war the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today. He linked racism, poverty, and militarism as the three great evils. He said America was spending more on death and destruction than on life and healing. Now fast forward to 2026. The defense budget is projected to exceed $1 trillion again. The U.S. is entangled in proxy conflicts, expanding military presence in Greenland and Panama Canal talks, and facing renewed threats over Venezuela. AI-powered autonomous weapons are already being tested, machines deciding who lives and dies, King said. A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. So here's a second hard question. Would Dr. King applaud peace through strength, or would he call it the same spiritual death he warned about in 1967? But perhaps the most painful parallel is still coming. King's philosophy of nonviolence and how it is remembered in 2026. Nonviolence, protest, and criminal justice. In 2026, Dr. King was arrested 29 times for nonviolent civil disobedience. He believed that unjust laws must be broken openly and lovingly. In 2026, peaceful protests still happen, but the response is different. Eye surveillance, facial recognition, and predictive policing target minority communities at higher rates. The prison population remains disproportionately black and brown, and the narrative around protests has shifted. What was once called civil disobedience is now often labeled domestic extremism or insurrection. King wrote from Birmingham jail, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." He also said, "We will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the hateful words and actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence of the good people." In 2026, is the silence louder than ever? Or are we finally listening? So where does that leave us in 2026? Conclusion and call to action. Dr. King's dream was never just about ending segregation. It was about ending poverty, ending war, ending the triple evils of racism, poverty, and militarism. In 2026, those evils have new names: algorithmic bias, trillion-dollar defense budgets, wealth concentration, border walls powered by AI. But the dream is not dead. It lives every time someone chooses justice over comfort, service over silence, law over fear. This MLK Day. The real question isn't what Dr. King would say. It's what we will do. Will we be the generation that finally bends the arc of history toward justice, or the one that lets it snap back? Thank you for watching. If this moved you, like, comment your answer below. What would MLK say to America in 2026? Subscribe and hit the bell for more deep historical reflections that connect the past to right now. Let's keep the conversation and the dream alive.